Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, at this time, we have the pleasure of speaking with two friends from a company called Americase. First is Joel Chakkalakal, correct?
That is correct.
Joel, who is the VP of Strategic Business Development, and we also have Chris, and I didn't get your last name, Chris, forgive me.
Egloff, Chris Egloff.
Chris Egloff, and he is the VP of Hazardous Material Management. Americase is an ISO 9001 AS 9100 company that designs and manufactures commercial duty carrying cases for all kinds of stuff. Basically all types of transportation. You got to get it from here to there. You want to make sure it doesn't explode. You want to make sure you get there in one piece. These guys make cases for it, right? And so after looking at your case, I can see that you cover a wide variety of rugged packaging options. So basically we're talking about lithium-ion batteries here, but you go into a broad range of stuff from the defense industry to even moving convention materials and stuff like that. Getting something somewhere safe is pretty much the whole deal, right? So the question is, obviously, for companies like we had talked about earlier, you don't know what you don't know. So at one point, do companies need to get in touch with you and start thinking about storage and transportation?
So from a supply chain perspective, they need to be thinking all the way back to their manufacturer, right? So whoever is manufacturing their battery, it's not simple to say, hey, our responsibility starts at when the lithium ion shows on the back dock.
Right.
They should really start at their manufacturer, right? Because as soon as it leaves the manufacturer, the bullseye's on everybody.
Right.
Right. So how do we keep lithium ion safe during transport from the OEM to your facility, whether it's a data center, colo, edge, whatever that facility may be? That's really where we need to be engaged from when you're starting to build your technology. So as soon as you get your specs for your battery, that's where you should be calling us in, because again, we want to be there to understand what is the risk, right?
Precisely.
And that's where we should start off at.
And just to talk a second about lithium ion, because all of a sudden we're seeing it everywhere. I mean, the challenge for a lot of technology, not just computer technology, but lots of things like, say for example, electric vehicles, is having a battery system that's as efficient as possible and high power. And that's where the high power aspect comes in. That's where the danger comes in from lithium ion. It's a great battery source, but it's also relatively dangerous. Now, I've seen, and if you're interested in looking at this, there is videos in the internet showing you what happens when lithium ion goes off. And it really goes off. I mean, the battery in your cell phone could burn through this table without much effort. So the question is that how much of a bigger bang do you see in data center level lithium ion batteries?
I want to be clear that batteries are inherently safe.
Oh, sure.
But it is the what if. And the batteries that they are replacing, these big diesel gens with these battery backup units at the server level, if something were to go wrong, if during transit they were damaged or there was a flaw in the manufacturing process in and of itself, and you were to have a thermal event, they are quite volatile when they go off. So you need to make sure you can mitigate that risk in all cycles of the process.
Right, and it's obviously more important during a transportation cycle than it is when they're in place. Now, do you also have to consider when they're in place? Is that something that you think about too, or is it mostly when they're in storage or transit?
Well, you definitely have to think of them when they're in place. I mean, DDR, damaged, defective, recalled batteries, right?
Oh, sure.
So if a BBU is in a rack or in a device, that could go bad.
Right.
So what do you do at that point? Part of our custom solutions is not only just dealing with what they call as on-spec batteries, but also off-spec.
Right.
The stuff that's going bad, right? So we actually have Americase actually has a special permit to be able to transport those DDR batteries back to a recycler or back to a lab or an OEM lab for analysis and diagnosis.
Yeah, again, without inconveniencing the customer at all. Right, makes perfect sense.
All you do is you slap a FedEx label on that case and it's ready to go.
So what are people typically using today? I mean, I tell you, sorry, I actually bought a dozen phone cell chargers. Lithium ions, I don't know, small, 2,000 or whatever. And I ordered a dozen of them, and they came in a dozen separate boxes.
Yep.
And I was like, did I order these wrong? It's like, no, lithium ion is something that everybody is paying attention to right now. So the question is, obviously, Amazon thinks a cardboard box with a little foam around it is sufficient, but what is, what are the solutions that are people using today typically?
Well, I mean, you have to understand that you have two categories. You have known good batteries and then you have damaged defective.
Right.
So from a server standpoint, damage defective is the exception to the rule, the 1 in a million that you might have to ship, and we have packaging for that.
Right.
But the bigger issue, and we'll get to later about the value proposition of what we do is right now it just has to be a UN spec cardboard box, possibly a plastic
Really?
bag on the inside of it, which is a lot of waste. It's not very green, and it's not reusable. So
Right.
there's waste, and it's not very protective. What we do is we come up with custom solutions that you can use over and over again for all life cycles, both on the front side and back side of your use with batteries.
Makes
inside the
perfect
facility.
sense. Yeah, and I remember when I got rid of my last Samsung phone, it had developed an extremely dangerous and interesting bulge, and I like, sure, I'll wrap this up and best of luck. You just never know when you see the case start separating. That's a bad thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Great. So at this point now, there is really very few in terms of specific requirements for a lot of these products, right?
For known good batteries, it's basically a drop test, a UN drop test in a cardboard package.
And that's pretty much it. All right. So if you're a company that hasn't done anything yet, I mean, if you completely forgot it, never came into your mind, what is the process? What should they be doing now, as of right now, to be able to deal with this properly?
I think the first step that they need to do is, of course, give us a call, right?
Oh, sure.
And it's the legwork that is involved here. It's not necessarily a product off the bat, and we don't have these products off the shelf,
Right.
Because every battery, as Chris mentioned, is different from another. So it's understanding the specifications, the dimensions, what they're trying to accomplish, right? So it's a lot of Q&A,
Right.
Between us and our client, so saying, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to solve an issue? Are we being proactive to an issue, or are we already in hot water in something? Right. There's a recall, or there's DDRs, or what is the case? So so it starts with that conversation, and we kind of, because of our experience, we kind of walk the client through those questions. We know the right questions to ask.
Sure.
Because we dealt with everything under the sun. So we know the right questions to ask, and we're happy to hold our clients and take them through that journey on their lithium-ion journey, or any type of dangerous good journey.
Right. Now it seems kind of odd, and I guess maybe not, because again, people think of battery, they think AA, C's, D's. Those are very standard packages, but we're seeing batteries coming from all different locations, all different needs, all different form factors. And that's probably what makes your job really hard, is the fact that you could be running into all kinds of things. Now, will there be cases where, say, for example, everybody who uses a certain vendor can get a off-the-shelf case?
I mean, I would say 80% of the way we're there. We're already working with some of the largest companies in the world, so we see very similar designs. But there isn't an overarching umbrella. We call that generic packaging.
Sure.
And honestly, depending on how many batteries you're trying to put in a case, you still have to read the regulations. Is it for transport? Is it for storage? There's so many data points that we have to know if we're absolutely not only legally compliant,
Right.
but offering you something that ultimately is as safe as it possibly can be with the data points that we gather from. Again, we do everything from testing the batteries, testing them in our packaging, and transport, drop testing, vibration. So we cover all facets of what you would need to know from a battery perspective. So it's not a long road to get to where we need to go, because we've done it so many times, but I wouldn't say that you could just buy a widget and you're safe. There is a lot of customized work that has to happen between us and our customers to understand how we can do it properly.
And it makes perfect sense. Again, I don't know if you have a fiduciary responsibility to your customers, but I'm assuming that I don't know if you have a certain amount of liability because you are involved in this hazardous materials process, right? So I'm assuming that you are also looking after the customer when they don't.
Absolutely.
And the customer's also got, like their insurance companies, right? Their risk underwriters. Right? These are
Exactly.
the guys signing a check in case something happens. And they're asking a lot of questions too, right? Great, you got lithium ion now, how are you protecting it? Well, we bought this case. Well, how do we know that case is going to handle the thermal runaway of this battery?
Right.
Those underwriters are going to ask those questions, and those are the questions we answer for them.
Exactly.
And that's the reason why we do, one size does not fit all. That's why we do the testing that we do.
Sure.
To provide them the empirical data evidence saying, yes, our product, our solution can handle
that,
can
exactly.
handle this, your battery, your
Wow.
specific battery.
So you serve as a verification
Yep.
platform as
Oh,
well. And I understand you're involved in several boards in terms of UN national grade and national level and world level standards.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, Americase has to be on the forefront of what's going on. I mean, from the fire safety codes that are coming down that are being adopted in 2024 that are already in New York and California right now, all the way to the regulations that are going to be pressed upon everybody that deals with lithium-ion batteries. One of them is the UN subcommittee on the reclassification of lithium ions and metal cells. Right now, when you talk about lithium-ion cells, it's basically a battery in equipment, out of equipment. Is it lithium-ion or lithium metal? Where in the dangerous goods world, so let's say explosives, there could be 1,000 different categories of something between TNT and fireworks, between alcohol and pure 100% liquid nitrogen. All these things are categories to understand how to transport them safely. The battery world hasn't caught up to that. So we're writing regulations to say, okay, this battery might be very inherently safe and it doesn't need much packaging, where this one is very volatile when it goes into rapid disassembly or thermal runaway, and you need to have a very robust packaging to guarantee that it can contain it both on transit and road, rail, sea, and even potentially air. So we are writing those regulations right now. And then we're also on the SAEG 27 board, where we're actually coming up with packaging standards to allow batteries back on airplanes outside of equipment, so it gives the consumers more lenience for shipping their batteries for just-in-time delivery, where right now you can't ship a battery over 30% state of charge outside of equipment on an airplane, commercial or any other right now.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, I seem to remember seeing something about you being involved in the airline industry as well. You also deal with like oxygen generators or other risky products?
Yeah, the ValueJet crash back in '97 really put the risk of oxygen on airplanes. So,
well, because again, all airplanes have it. The problem is moving around the unused or partially used or whatever.
Absolutely.
And again, that's what ended up bringing the plane down into the Everglades, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, and the regulators actually proposed some of the strongest packaging that's ever been written. I mean, we're talking 1700 degree flame penetration test.
Oh my God.
Extreme drop testing. I mean, to ship an oxygen cylinder right now can cost you up to $1,000 for a package.
Seriously?
Sometimes the cost of the package is more than the bottle itself, but if you have to ship it by air, you have to put it in a container that we design.
That's perfectly safe. That makes absolute sense. How do companies stay informed? I mean, my God, like you say, the challenge is these things are changing all the time. The products are changing all the time. What they're made from is changing all the time. Their form factors. How does the company keep track?
I'll tell you, first thing, don't use Google.
Well, come on, that's all we have.
Pick up the phone, call my friend here, Chris.
All right.
Like I said, he sits on those subcommittee boards. He's the foremost authority on this.
To be honest, you can't stay informed. There's some companies that we deal with have individual hazmat experts that do nothing but that. But that's still one person in a $1 billion company.
Right.
There's organizations that you can join, but usually when you partner with us, we're going to consult with you. We're going to keep you abreast of the situation. Half of my job is traveling all over the world, trying to understand what are the regulations today, what have they been in the past, and what they could be in the future, and helping them understand all these difficult hurdles that they're going to have to go to be both compliant and safe.
Right. And again, this isn't just about the lithium ion. It's about whatever other potential stuff may show up along the way. Right now, it's lithium ion is probably the biggest consideration, right?
Correct. But we're problem solvers. We're willing to attack any issue and give you some kind of a packaging or containment source.
Even beyond the dangerous goods, we're doing custom enclosures, server cabinets, server cases, edge, mobile edge enclosures, those type of things. So we're across the board.
Okay.
Dealing with clients.
Yeah, and again, it's just not hazardous. You do all kinds of stuff. I mean, moving around conventions and stuff like that.
Anything
rock
that needs
shows.
To be moved or stored safely.
Exactly.
Or high value.
But does a traveling rock show need danger?
I mean, probably not. But if there's business to be had,
I'll go for it. All right, danger. And again, are these expensive? Just a quick final question.
Consider what you think. A good example is one of our clients was a cloud computing company. They needed this because they never built data centers for lithium-ion storage. It was going to cost them about $200,000 to retrofit a warehouse for lithium-ion.
Oh my God.
Our case is a couple $1,000.
Right.
So the return on investment is, in the days and weeks. Not even close to the months, not even going to years.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And it's not easy to say. Well, gentlemen, it's been a treat. Joel, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Danger Man, Chris, take care of yourself.
Thanks
Gentlemen,
a lot, guys.
We'll be seeing you again, I'm sure.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.